I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined again by child and adolescent therapist Saskia Joss, brackets, who also happens to be my daughter, and also it happens to be your birthday.
It is my birthday.
And I was there when you were born, so I remember it. I'm your mother. I remember everything about it.
That's true.
Do we say how old you are?
I'm happy to tell everyone I'm 36 today.
Happy
Hooray!
birthday and many happy returns. I can't believe my baby is 36. It's a bit of a shock.
But you must have been so young.
I was just about to say the same thing. Absolutely, so young.
27 when she was born.
Wow.
Yes, and it was wildly exciting, and it still is. Anyway, later on we're going to be asking if you can ever live up to your parents' expectations. Are your children living up to yours? Is your only expectation for them to be happy and be themselves? I'd love to hear from you about this one. But now let's take your calls on loneliness and children. Why are we talking about this? Well, obviously, Rebecca is, what are you called at Childline?
I'm a deputy president and a volunteer counsellor.
Exactly, deputy president of Childline. You know that her mother, Dame Esther Ranson, founded Childline, and Childline delivered almost 5,000 counselling sessions last year, where the main concern turned out to be loneliness, which was also given as one of the main reasons why children and young people do reach out to Childline on the phone. So is this something that worries you about children in your life? 0207 862 2222. So were you surprised that loneliness was one of the paramount concerns?
Well, the stereotype for Childline is abused children, which
Absolutely.
is awful. And that's when I started my training, I thought that's what we would be dealing with. And I was amazed by how often, what are you concerned about loneliness? What are you concerned about loneliness? And it's all ages. It's from right when they pick up the phone and they're really little 6-year-olds to 18, which is when we cut off, I'm afraid.
And they say, I'm lonely.
I'm lonely. I'm
It's
lonely.
so sad.
And I have stuff to do. I have people to do it with, but I'm sat in my room and I'm alone.
I'm lonely. Saskia, you know, when I was growing up, I remember loneliness was the latchkey kid whose parent was working or parents were working and had to let themselves into an empty house. And you would think, oh, my God, that must be so lonely. And the only child. You think, gosh, you're all alone with no siblings. And that was really it. I don't think people thought that any other children really were lonely.
And I think you're right. I think there obviously are things that are still common in our society. There are more children who let themselves in and have working parents than have there ever been. There are more children who are doing things for themselves before and after school, extended days at school, as well as more use of social media and screens, which means less talking to other people, where you might notice that you, after quite a few hours, you have been alone for a long time. Also, lots of divorce makes children more inconsistent with the adults that spend time with them, and the feeling of being looked after by one person can be easier for children than the feeling of two, can make children feel lonely, particularly if your parent has a new partner. It might be harder to feel sort of fully looked after by the adults that you see. But also we know that there's a massive link between oxytocin, the amount of oxytocin people have, and how lonely they feel. Oxytocin is the connection chemical, the love chemical, and it's the thing that makes parents bond to their babies. But it's also the chemical you get with good friends, with animals and pets. And we know that children and adults who are missing oxytocin will feel more lonely. How do we get oxytocin? From being in good relationships. If you have a nice teacher at school, you're going to have more oxytocin. If you've got good friends at school, you're going to have more oxytocin. If you've got great grandparents that come over and look after you, you're going to have more oxytocin. And we can see that the big thing is these interactive moments, and it's these children who are lonely, who either they're not receiving enough oxytocin from the moments they get because they don't get enough time with their parents, or they're just not having them at all.
Gosh.
So they're sort of lonely because they're missing this chemical interaction and this relational feeling from the people around them.
Have we mistaken social media contact and scrolling and virtual contact for real contact? And does the social media connection give you oxytocin, or is it a kind of fake thing?
It gives you dopamine. When you get a message or someone interacts with you online, you get dopamine, which is a different kind of chemical. It's the success chemical that makes you feel, oh, I'm achieving things. But oxytocin makes you feel loved and lovable and wanted and important and valuable and valued. And without that, that's what loneliness feels like, that feeling that you are alone. Nobody wants to be with you. You're not good enough to be with. And we see that children who are lonely will very quickly feel very depressed. They have a depression of this feeling, a lack of this feeling of connective chemicals, and they feel lonely, that nobody would want to be with them, that they're not good enough, and that they can't sort of brace themselves again to engage in case they might be rebuffed or they won't get what they need. So we see children who are lonely become depressed quite quickly.
OK, so if you are a parent or a carer and you suspect that the child that you're parenting, your own child or a child that you're looking after, might be lonely, you could be thinking, well, my God, what am I meant to do? There's a cost of living crisis. I'm rushed off my feet. I have to drop the child at the childminder. Then I've got to put the washing in. Then they've got to have some dinner. Then they've got to go to bed. What is this time? How am I meant to kind of generate this oxytocin? I mean, if you look at Rebecca now, she's absolutely, she's torn a million places. Her mother lives an hour away. She's very, very ill. She's got 2 kids. She's working. How do you generate in a short time, if you're very busy, vital oxytocin for a child?
I think I'd look into the week and see where have I got these moments where I might be able to put in a 5-minute window where I really look at my child, I really see them, I really say nice things to them. We have an activity we do together that we enjoy. There's something about our relationship that's special to me. And we're also trying to practice something called mind-mindedness, which is when you hold your child in mind when you're not with them.
Right.
So you don't have to give them something to show mind-mindedness. I thought about you when I wasn't there. I saw a funny dog and I took a picture, and I'm showing it to you now because I remembered that you like dogs. When I heard this nice song on the radio, I'm showing it to you because you're important to me even when we're not together. You're not lonely, even when we're apart, because I'm thinking about you.
My gosh. So you can do that in relatively short time.
I also heard that oxytocin is released after 10 seconds of a hug. So it's a longer hug than you would think. It could be a bit awkward if you don't know them very well. But I really feel that physical contact in a world where teachers aren't allowed to touch their children, probably for very good reasons, that nobody is allowed to touch your child without your permission. I think physical contact, my father was so tactile.
Yeah.
He loved a hug. And I think that releases it. And also what we're talking to kids about is when they're on social media and when they're seeing other people's lives, it makes their life insignificant in comparison and brings the loneliness circle much tighter into them.
Yes.
There's also that some children might feel that they haven't got the skills to go across a divide in a playground to break their loneliness cycle. They feel lonely, they haven't got friends, maybe they're neurodivergent, maybe they've come to a new school and they're not sure how to sort of get across. They feel lonely, they've identified it, they don't have any friends or they haven't got the amount of friends they would like, and they feel like they can't get themselves where they want to be. And as parents, we can do lots of things. One
It
is
takes a lot of courage as
Absolutely.
well to
It
go
takes
across
real
and talk
guts.
to
Well,
someone.
nobody will believe this of me, but it's completely true. I went to some charity ball thing on my own because I'm single, which I hate. And I looked at this enormous room. This was not very long ago. And I looked at this room full of people. I felt completely panicked and honestly went and locked myself in the loo for a bit. I thought I'll just come in when it's time for dinner rather than have to just walk into a whole room full of strangers. And I'm quite good at talking to strangers. That's my natural job. But it was overwhelming for me, and it wasn't very long ago. So how do you pilot them across that
So I think
room?
it depends on their age. So the first thing is for younger children, you can talk with them on the way to school about who they'd like to play with and what they'd like to play and get them to lock in that child early. Hey, Stacey, I'd like to play with you on the swings at break time. If the person says no, ask someone else and practice what it would feel like if they were to have to ask somebody else so they don't feel rejected. Sometimes people just won't want to play with you. It's not because you're not a nice kid, you're lovely.
Yeah.
It's just maybe they don't want to do the swings. And also say to them, do a bit of negotiation. They don't want to play the swings. Maybe you could say to them, what do you want to do first? And we'll go on the swings after. Teach them the actual practical skills to have a partnership for break time or time that
Right,
they're
let's
there.
go to Nikki. Nikki's on the line in Cheshire. Nikki, what do you think all this loneliness is about?
Very interesting, really, and I'm just going to change my mind what I was going to say because I just quickly want to say that using pat dogs in school is very good for getting nursery children or younger children through the school gate. My other dog, who sadly died, he was a pat dog, and I used to meet children at the gate and we'd walk in together and he'd go into the classroom with these children, and that's a really good thing that schools could do. It's very interesting. When I knew the question was coming up, I was with a 15-year-old boy, and I said to him, do you think children are more lonely? And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, yeah. So I said, well, are you lonely? And he said, no. So I said, so what's the difference? So he said, it's because the kids are all on their phones all the time.
Yeah.
He isn't. He's got a lot of sport in his life, and he's got siblings. A lot of children who are only children can be lonely because they are an only child.
Yes.
And then it's made worse by being so obsessed with the phone.
Yeah.
And so I know I don't teach anymore, but I was a teacher for many years. But I am in contact with a lot of children because I do some teaching still, private teaching. But I have an example with a family of children, 5 of them, who I teach some of them. None of them have got a phone. They are far more engaging than the children that I do know who do have phones.
All right, Nikki, thank you so much. An excellent perspective on this. I mean, obviously, people feel that they've got to give their kid a phone because if they don't, their child will be isolated socially, won't know what's going on, will be, you know, an exile from the group. It will be a terrible, terrible thing. But really, parents and carers have to, don't they, Saskia, step up and manage it to some extent?
Yes, so they have to know what their children are doing online, who they're engaging with, and also how long they're online for. You know, there are very clear guidelines for based on age, how long we think children should be on their phones for every day as a maximum. And if your children are regularly meeting that, I think, well, what are they doing on the days when they're not? How could you add that into their activity list and things that they do? And are they doing things they actually love? You know, sometimes we can see that phones obviously are addictive. They make all of us want to look at them all the time. What could you actually entice your child with that would cause them to have positive interactions, meet other people, get outside and get the opportunity for all the other kinds of positive chemicals that we like, as well as, you know, being able to text their friends if they're going to meet at the cinema? What would we need to sort of entice them away? Now our children have got a relationship with their phones. How can we help them step back from them without making them feel like they're being punished? And how do we help children feel connected and join in with activities without having to be, you know, without eye contact and engagement?
Well, this is what we say at Childline. We say that we don't want to take children away from the phones. We don't want to bring shame to it because then they'll start doing it covertly and we want to know what they're doing. And we also don't want to have a generation of Luddites who don't know how to... I mean, everything is done through our phone, from our takeaway to our doctor's appointment to finding a date. And the other thing that I would say, that reflecting what Nikki was saying when she asked that 15-year-old boy and he said, I'm not lonely. Lonely has such a stigma, doesn't it? It's very difficult to admit that you're lonely. So perhaps he wasn't able to say it. And one of the things about Childline that's so wonderful is that it's completely confidential, open, non-judgmental space. Your parenting ideals, I love you. I really want you to come home with me. So that's what we try and create at Childline. And I feel that you are creating that with a parent. It's setting them up for the success.
Right, well, don't forget, we're soon going to be asking, can you ever live up to your parents' dreams? Or